Okay, are we ready?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Candace Hunt, Chair of the Mississippi Charter School Authorizer Board. This regular meeting of the MCSAB is being held today, Monday, January 26, 2026 at 1 o'clock p.m. The notice of this meeting, which included the date, time, place, purpose, and identified the attendance available to the public, has been posted. Minutes of this meeting will be recorded. This meeting is being called to order at 1:12 p.m. on Monday, January 26, 2026. As I call the names of the board members, please state the location of your presence for this meeting. Jay Carney. Jay.
You're on mute, Jay.
Sorry, I couldn't find it. I've got so many Zoom links up, but this is Jay Carney. I'm President Tupelo.
Okay, Carol Gary.
Present, Jackson, Mississippi.
And Candace Hunt, me, Tupelo. Erin Meyer.
Present, Madison, Mississippi.
Okay, Ben Morgan, absent. Candace Robbins.
Present, Jackson, Mississippi.
And Marcy Scoggins.
Present, Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay, a quorum is present for conducting this meeting. If everybody would like to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with
liberty
and justice.
For all. Jay, could you say a prayer for us?
I'd be happy to. Let us pray. Father, we just come to you today. We thank you for the opportunity to gather together to look to you for guidance and look to you for direction. Lord, we take a time out to lift all of those up that have been affected by this winter storm. God, those that have lost loved ones, those that have lost property, those, oh Lord, that are suffering during this season. Lord, we pray that you will send someone to help them, wrap your loving arms around about them, be with ours, those that are working to get the power back on, and be with all those that are doing their best to help things in this season. Lord, I pray you'd bless our efforts together today. I pray, Lord, we would honor you in everything we say and do. Forgive us of our sins, mold and make us into what you would have us to be. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, as for the adoption of the agenda, I would like to move 10 down to 12, the consideration for discussion items, if we could move those to 12.
So moved with that amendment. Erin Meyer.
I second it, Carol Gary.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for December 8, 2025. Do I have a motion?
Erin Meyer.
Second, Marcy
Second.
Scoggins.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, for January 22nd?
I don't believe we have those minutes. I did not receive those to review. There's no link.
Those, if I remember correctly, both of those were updated. They may not have been updated for you, but we can get those to you very quickly. They're on the website. So, I think we had an update as late as last night.
We did. The latest version of the packet has two committee meeting minutes as well as the financial report that were included at a later date.
Okay, and they're posted on the website yesterday evening, correct?
Earlier than yesterday, but yes, they are in what's online. Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to drop that in, if I can do that, drop that in an email to you guys real quickly so you'll have that.
Is this like on the committee meetings section of the website? Because there's no hot link for the minutes, just the notice and agenda.
So the minutes, since they're not yet approved, they're only linked in the board packet for today's meeting. Only after approval are the minutes posted online where you're looking.
So, Aaron, those are in under the board where the board is, but I'm going to pop a link in real quickly to everybody on the board so you can have a copy of that. And
can you send the agenda too? Because I can't, for the life of me, I can't find it.
it will have the agenda on it.
Okay.
And this is the well, wait just a minute. Let me make sure I have the.
Do you want me to send it, Dr. K? I can.
I've got it right here, Jordan. And let's see here. If I can get to new email, I'll get them out. Then everybody will have them. Board members. And make sure, Candace, I'm going to make sure I have both of your emails in there for you. Let's see, Jackson Charter Schools, and then this is an updated. This is also on the website for anybody that needs it. Okay, updated.
I found it on the website.
All right, it's on its way for everybody. Notice and agenda, it says at the very top, updated notice of this meeting, the inclement weather information, the Zoom meeting access, and all of the links to the minutes from the 22nd on both committee meetings, and then the rest of the agenda as it follows. So, and let me know.
I will make a motion. I can make a motion to approve the Performance and Accountability Committee minutes from January the 22nd. This is Marcy Scoggins.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second?
I second it, Carol Gary.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay. So for the next, do I hear?
I move that the minutes from the January 22nd Applications Committee be approved. Aaron Meyer.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay,
Carol.
so that it was, okay, Carol. Carol. Okay,
I'm
is there any
sorry.
discussion?
I realized I wasn't on. I was talking, but I didn't have it off. I'm sorry. Off of mute.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, for the chair report. So there was discussion about a chair for the applications committee. Erin Meyer, would you consider being chair of the applications committee?
Yes.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
I so move Candace Robbins.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
I'll
Carol
second
Berry.
Marcy Scoggins.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, now for the executive director report, Dr. Kay, would you like to give us your report?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Under the Executive Director Report, Item A, recent newsletter, the one thing I would just flag for you is our new branding, and thank Bree for a job well done on that. The newsletter looks great as always. It is full of really great information for schools and anybody really interested in what's going on in the charter sector. So thank you, Bree, for a job well done on that. Items B, the stakeholder survey. We have guests here today from Gibson, who did Gibson Consulting Group. They did an outstanding job for us this year with our stakeholder survey. And so at this time, I will turn it over to Kathy and Todd from Gibson. And unless you have another member with you today, is it just the two of you?
Just the two of us.
Okay, great. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll turn it over to you. And if you need help with any access so you can share the screen, Jordan or Bree one can help with that.
Okay. Todd's going to go ahead and pull that up, and I'll just take a moment here at the beginning to thank you all so much for working with us on this project. It honestly couldn't have gone any more smoothly. We're grateful to Dr. Karmacharya for that and the rest of the team for helping us stay in touch and get ready for today. I also want to thank I joined this project very, very late in the game. We were just finishing up reporting. So I want to thank some of the folks that really helped get the work done. First of all, Dr. Brian Fitzpatrick, who really designed the study, and we were sad to see him go, but he got a great professional opportunity, so we had to let him go before the project was done. Dr. Todd Hall is going to be presenting for you today. He did all of the really hard work in the background with the data analysis and reporting, so you're really going to see his work today. Ana Carolina Garza was responsible for administering the statewide survey, and then I'm Kathy Malerba. We've ran through this a little while ago, and takes about 15 minutes, but we absolutely can stick around for any questions. And I didn't ask him, but I'm sure Todd would be very happy if anything's not clear and you want to raise your hand and ask a question in the middle of the presentation. I'm sure that's completely fine. So thanks you again for making time for us on your agenda, and I will hand it over to Dr. Todd Hall.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you again, Dr. Kamasharia and Jordan and Brianna for a great collaboration on this work. As a roadmap for today, I will be going over an overview of the survey and then talking through some of the key findings or highlights. Starting with overall top level, there are positive perceptions of charter schools among most Mississippi residents. There are, however, some frequent misconceptions about charter schools and opportunities to raise awareness. And then we did a subset of questions for charter parents and found high satisfaction among that stakeholder group. We also surveyed non-charter parents and found openness to charter schools if charter schools were to open in their community. And then finally, I'll conclude with some recommendations that stem from our findings. So Gibson conducted this survey back in October of 2025 with the goal of understanding awareness of attitudes towards and satisfaction with charter schools. We contacted parents at 11 charter schools to participate in the survey. We also contracted with a polling firm to reach non-charter parents and other community members in the state of Mississippi. Overall, the survey yielded 1,563 responses from Mississippi residents. That included 446 charter parents, which is about close to an 11% response rate for that stakeholder group, 568 non-charter parents, and 549 community members. Among the non-charter parents and community members, the distribution in our sample mirrored Mississippi population in terms of race and ethnicity, as well as in terms of education levels. But compared to the state population, our sample was somewhat overrepresented in the breakdown of women and also underrepresented in terms of people with incomes above $100,000. So again, the top level finding is that there are positive perceptions of charter schools in Mississippi. We asked, what is your overall opinion of having charter schools in Mississippi? And across the three stakeholder groups, 70% of the respondents held favorable opinions of charter schools, either being somewhat positive or very positive. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the most likely to express positive views were charter parents, with 86% of them identifying somewhat positive or very positive views of charter schools. But even among non-charter stakeholders, more than 60% favor charter schools, indicating wide acceptance. And I'll note that only 6% of our sample overall expressed negative views of charter schools. We also asked a question about potential support for possible legislation to expand charter schools, and we found that Mississippi residents were much more likely to support than to oppose legislation that would allow charter schools to open in districts with performance ratings above D or F. So we asked, current state law restricts charter schools to districts with ratings D or F. Would you support a law that got rid of this restriction? Overall, slightly more than half of the respondents in our survey would support removing the restriction. And I'll note that for every one respondent who opposed lifting that restriction, there were 3 respondents in favor of removing the restriction on charter schools to D or F rated districts. We also looked at these results by the state accountability rating of the respondent's school district. And overall, across levels, a majority, more than half, supported lifting that restriction, although support rates were somewhat lower in A and B rated districts. But again, even there was a slim majority that would support lifting the restriction on charter schools. In general, access to high quality public schools remains a concern for Mississippi residents. We asked, thinking about your community, how many children have access to a high quality school in your local public school district? In the dark teal or the dark blue color, we note that overall only 1 in 4 respondents felt that all children have access to a high quality public school. That's across charter parents, 23%, non-charter parents, 28%, and community members, 22%. Again, we also looked at this question separately by the state accountability rating of the respondent school district. And there we found that parents in A-rated districts were the most likely to report that most or all children have access to a high-quality school. Yet fewer than half of the parents in C and F-rated districts agreed that most or all children have access to a high-quality public school. Our next set of key findings relate to misconceptions about charter schools, and here we highlight some areas where there's room for raising awareness. So in this section, we'll talk about some survey items that we displayed with factual information about charter schools. For example, charter schools are public schools. And then we asked respondents to say yes, no, or I don't know. So first we asked, how familiar are you with charter schools in Mississippi? And we'll note that there's limited familiarity beyond charter parents. More than half of the non-charter parents and community members said they were either not at all familiar. Actually, more than half said they're not at all familiar. And then more also said they're only a little familiar. When we provided this statement, charter schools are public schools, then we asked yes, no, or I don't know. There are many non-charter parents and community members, more than 2/3 within those groups, who didn't know that charter schools were public schools. Either they said no or they said, I don't know. We asked a similar item about charter schools charging tuition. And here we see that about 38% of non-charter parents said that charter schools charge tuition, and 34% of community members believe that charter schools charge tuition. There's another third for non-charter parents and another 38% for community members who weren't aware. They said, I don't know. And then in an item shown in the report but not shown here, we also provided the statement charter schools provide special education services. And a significant portion of those non-charter parents and community members, 40%, were unsure whether charter schools actually provided special education services, and 10% believed that charter schools did not provide special education services. So after asking this set of questions, we did provide factual information clarifying that charter schools are public schools. They do provide special education services. They are free. They don't charge tuition. We provided that information before respondents continued on in the survey. That way we could get their perceptions based on accurate information. A subset of the survey asked additional questions of charter parents, and again, there we found overall high satisfaction. So most charter parents were satisfied with their child's charter school. 27% reported that they were somewhat satisfied, and 61% reported that they were very satisfied. So overall, almost 9 out of 10, or 88%, said they were either very or somewhat satisfied with their child's school. We then dug deeper by asking, which of the following factors would you rate most highly about your child's charter school? We allowed respondents to select up to 3 factors. And here, the top factors by far were communication with families, with 59% of charter parents endorsing that aspect, and academic quality/rigor, with 52% saying that that is what they would rate most highly about their child's charter school. Now, this figure, I'm going to take a little bit more time to explain, where I'm showing the association between points in the state accountability system and parent satisfaction. And here we find that charter schools with more points in the state accountability system has slightly higher average parent satisfaction. On the y-axis, we have the average parent satisfaction score. This is going to be simply the sum of 3 components. One is the letter grade parents would give their child's charter school, where A is a 5 or the highest level of satisfaction, and F is a 1. We also use their satisfaction on a 1 to 5 scale, where 5 is very satisfied and 1 is very dissatisfied. And then finally, whether they would re-enroll their child in the charter school if they're eligible, where 1 is a yes and 0 is no. So our satisfaction scale at most could be 11 points. And what we see in this figure is a range between a little over 9 and about 10.3 points across the charter schools that had state accountability ratings for a 24-25 school year. I'll note that there are 7 charter schools shown in this figure. Of the 11 that we surveyed, 4 of the 11 did not have a letter grade for 2025. 3 didn't have data, and I believe 1 was newly opening this past year. So that is the y-axis, the average charter parent satisfaction score. And then on the x-axis, the school total points in the state accountability system The highest for charter schools is the 700 mark. And so what we see here is that within that range, although it's satisfaction between 9 and 10 and a half, those schools that have more accountability points tend to have higher parent satisfaction on average. And the correlation between those two variables was about 0.72. We also ask a subset of questions to the non-charter parents just to understand their potential interest in charter school and their perceptions of education quality options in general. And here we found openness to charter schools among non-charter parents. We asked if a tuition-free public charter opened nearby, how likely would you be to consider it? And here we are showing results split by the rating that the parent gave their child's current school. Overall, most non-charter parents in our sample, 77%, were open, either somewhat or very likely to consider a charter school. Non-charter parents who gave their child's current school lower ratings were more likely to say they would consider charter schools. So, for example, among parents who gave their child's current school a D rating, 85% said they would consider a charter school. Among parents who gave their child's current school an A rating, still 68% said they were somewhat or very likely to consider a charter school. So there's interest even across different levels of satisfaction with parents' current schools. We also dug into their interest for choosing any school option and found that non-charter parents rated safety, academic quality, and communication with families as their most important considerations for any school option. So similar to the question we showed earlier, we allowed them to select up to 3 items or 3 factors that are most important to them when considering any school option. And the top 3, safety with 54% selecting this, academic quality / rigor, 50% endorse this option, and communication with families, 45%. So we'll note that safety was the most important factor that they identified as a priority, or the most frequently identified factor that's a priority. And that's something that may not be captured in the state accountability system or test scores, but is nonetheless very important and top of mind for parents. And academic quality and rigor was a shared priority both among charter parents as well as the non-charter school parents. So putting together these results, we developed 3 recommendations for the Mississippi Charter School Authorizer Board. One is to leverage the largely positive public opinion of charter schools when advocating for opportunities to expand charter schools in the state. 2, there is definitely some awareness or knowledge gaps, so it will be important to continue to raise awareness about charter schools, and especially to address some fundamental gaps or misconceptions about charter schools being free public schools. And finally, continue to focus on communication with families as well as academic quality and rigor, as these were highly rated factors, both among what the charter parents who currently are engaged in charter schools appreciate, as well as what the non-charter parents are seeking when they're considering any school option. So those are the highlights and recommendations from our survey. And at this time, I want to pause to see if anyone has questions.
Thank you. This is encouraging and helpful.
You're welcome.
I just want to say again, thank you to the Gibson team. For our first experience in working with you guys, and it was absolutely flawless from the beginning throughout the entire project. One of the most really professional experiences I've had in years of working with vendors in the education world. And I just appreciate your attention to detail and your willingness to work through some of the questions that we had. And I want to say publicly how much I appreciate your willingness to work with another local advocacy group, because you guys know that on the front end, we were able to side by side, along with Mississippi First, parallel and not conflate any of the questions as they were doing a survey at the same time. And so being able to sit down and talk with their staff and work together to make sure that we were all seeking the same type of information, but not double doing and not double, uh, I guess, frustrating people with asking multiple questions of multiple people at the same time. And so just thank you so much for your willingness to do that and work so closely with them. I think the robust amount of information that we will be able to really compile together from the results of their survey and our survey will be incredibly meaningful to the work that we do with the legislature this year. So thank you so much. And thank you also to Mississippi First for working with us on this.
Thank you. It's a great collaboration, and we are so glad we were able to work closely with them and scope out areas to be complementary to one another. So we hope this is very helpful, and we appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone for your time today. We
Yeah.
enjoyed being with you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll head out then if there aren't any questions.
Okay. All right. Thank you again.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Okay, so thank you again for that report. I think we'll transition now to our annual report. Let me see if I see Anna somewhere here. There she is. We have a big Brady Bunch screen today. So Anna Nicotera is here with Basis Policy Research. Anna is uniquely familiar, intimately familiar with our work in Mississippi, as she's been working with us on a lot of different projects throughout the years. So thank you for being here today. This is an incredibly important and timely report for the board to consider. I just encourage you to pay close attention to the highlights that Anna shares with you today. They too will be important to the conversations that we have with the legislature going forward. So Anna, I will turn it over to you unless you have a question and you're ready to go.
No, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to present our report this year. We have had the opportunity to create this report for the last several years. And this year was really just a special, and I hope you all know why it was special. If you have your hard copy of the report, there is just an incredible amount of beautiful artwork in this report that was contributed from students across the state in charter schools. And if you turn to the last page of the report, you will see all the artwork that was submitted and the student names and the schools that they are from. And it really is beautiful. I smile when I look at this report. So I have included some of the artwork today because I just think it really should be highlighted. And I'm here in Colorado where it is cold and snowy, and some of these pictures are just bright and sunny, and they make me feel like there's someplace else I would like to be. So with that, let me give a little bit of an overview of the annual report. We do this annually, or the board does this annually, and the purpose is it is legislatively mandated that that the authorizer is required to annually look at student performance of the charter school students in the state. And this report is going to differ a little bit from some of the other data pieces that you receive. So I'm going to hold off on that and give a little bit of a summary of where this report sits in terms of the larger landscape of data that you look at as a board. So just to give a little bit of a just an anchor, the data for this report is from the 2024-25 school year. So we're looking at last year's data. We're sitting in the middle of the 25-26 school year, so things have changed a little bit, but just kind of keep that in mind that we're thinking about the schools from last year. And today, what I'm going to report, I'm going to show some analyses in math and ELA, as well as enrollment and demand. And if you have the report next to you, you'll see that there are some additional analyses in it on chronic absenteeism, proficiency, and growth data. But those three pieces are in the state's school report card. And so I'm going to set those aside because the data there are consistent with the report card, whereas the data that we're presenting on our impact analyses and then enrollment demand are something different. So this is data that you wouldn't get in the other reports. So like I said, I really would like to kind of talk about how this report sits within kind of a larger framework of data that the board gets about charter schools in the state. So there's three sets of information that you get annually. You have the state accountability grades and the report cards, and those come from the Mississippi Department of Education. And then you also are getting information from your staff in the authorizing board. So those are the performance frameworks that are completed annually, and they provide information on achievement, but also really great information about the financial stability of schools and the operational health. So, and that's a different set of data than what you would get in the school report card. And then you have this annual legislative impact analysis that we've had the opportunity to do over the last several years. And the purpose of this report is really to try to isolate the impact of the charter schools on students. And we do that in some kind of sophisticated methodological ways so that we can really say and create a counterfactual. What is the performance of students in charter schools compared to if they had attended a traditional school? And so that is a very different analysis than what you're going to get in the state report card or even in the authorizer framework. What we are doing is getting down to the student level. We match students to kind of like twins in the traditional public schools. And we're able to, basically say like these students look very similar on prior academic achievement and demographics. And so if they look very similar and we can kind of make some assumptions like the other students could have attended a charter school, we can then start making some assumptions about, okay, well, if we see differences in performance, we can say that that was the result of the charter school as opposed to other factors. So for our analyses, we set up a study that, again, is a little bit sophisticated in its methodology. We are doing a matching of students. We use a strategy called propensity score matching. And so we analytically take all the charter school students and match them to demographically and academically similar students in the traditional public schools. The thing about Mississippi data that is really fantastic, we get data from the Department of Ed that is very clean and just ready to go analytically. And that is a celebration because there are some other states where that just isn't the case. So Mississippi has amazing data. The other thing that Mississippi has in this data is following kids from preschool forward. So we can actually identify kids even going into elementary schools and match them in the year prior to them going to the charter school. And so we can, for the elementary school, we don't have a prior academic achievement, but we have demographics and we have kind of geographic proximity. This creates a very good match in the sense that we can see kids before they attend the school. We're eliminating what's kind of called selection bias, that if you're comparing kids who have already attended a charter school to kids who didn't make that choice, you might be making some assumptions about their choice that allows, that kind of limits your ability to say that the effects were due to the charter school. We match kids prior to them showing up in a charter school. So we are eliminating a lot of that selection bias. So we really feel confident in our results that they are showing the impact of charter schools on student outcomes. On the right side of this slide, just wanted to show that we're able to include a very large number of charter school students in our analyses. As you can see, we have over 6,500 students that we match in middle school. And then we have almost 1,500 kids that we're able to match in elementary school. And so we don't start analyzing the elementary school data until third grade, but we have matched them in pre-K, and then we're looking at their results as they get old enough to have assessment data. All right, so I'm going to go, I have two slides here. This first one is going to be our elementary school results, and then on the next slide, we'll look at the middle school results. And so what we have here in the report, we present two figures that kind of give you different sets of information. So the figure that's on the left is the snapshot of results for the 24-25 school year. And so we present this as overall for both math and English language arts for elementary. And then we can start breaking out those and present results by school, and then also then pooled across grade levels across those schools. And so we're just really trying to give like different pieces of information about how charter school students performed in last school year. Overall, what we're showing, and if things are orange, that means it is statistically significant. And you could say that that result that we are confident that it's different than zero. So the charter school students are performing differently than the match comparison. The gray ones are not statistically significant. So that those you would actually say like it's roughly the same, that the kids who are in charter schools were performing roughly the same as traditional public schools. So if you're looking at that top band, the overall, the charter school students in elementary school performed higher in English language arts than their matched comparisons peers in the traditional public schools. And that estimate was at about 0.301. If you then slide over to the other figure, we are presenting our results over time. And so at the very bottom was last year, so you'll again see that 0.301. And you'll see that over time, the ELA, this is the largest result for ELA since we've been able to analyze the data for elementary schools. So last year, the students in charter schools performed very well compared to their matched peers, and even very well compared to prior years in the charter schools. That math result is statistically insignificant. So basically said the students performed about as well as if they had gone to a traditional school. And that was similar to the prior year. There was 2 years ago, there was a negative effect in math, but since then it has not been negative. It is, well, it hasn't been statistically significant. It is negative. So that is our elementary school data. And you'll see that if you look at the schools, Ambition Prep in both math and in ELA had positive results. In Smilo Collegiate, those results are statistically insignificant. So basically students were performing as well as their matched peers in the traditional public schools. And in Clarksdale Collegiate, they had a positive ELA result and a non-significant result in math. And you can also see results by grade level. All right, I'm going to move now to middle school, which is the same sort of format, where on the left side we have the results for last year, overall by school and then grade levels. And then on the right are the results over time. What you can see is that for middle school in 24-25, the overall results were null. That basically suggests that there really was no difference from zero between the students attending charter schools and the traditional public schools, but it also means they weren't performing worse. They just were performing about the same level as traditional public schools. There were some differences for some specific schools, like Midtown Public showed positive results in math. Smilo Prep showed positive results in both math and ELA. And then there were statistically negative results for Reimagine Prep in both math and ELA. We didn't find, when we looked at grade levels, we didn't find anything that stood out in terms of statistical significance. And if you look on the right, I mean, over time, the math results for middle school had been, kind of traditionally positive. So this was a difference this year. And so, there probably could be a conversation about what was going on last year in the middle schools, of charter schools, because there was kind of this pattern of higher performance in math, but that went away in this past year. All right, now I'm going to shift to a conversation about the data that we show in terms of demand and then enrollment. So the demand data that we use is self-reported data from the charter schools. Each year, the charter schools present or provide to the board their enrollment data and the number of students who apply for the charter school, the number of students who were accepted off who were offered a seat. And we create a measure that we are looking at the ratio of the number of students. So after the school is able to offer seats, how many students are left on a wait list? We look at that number in comparison to how many students were offered seats. And this demand ratio, if it's above 0, it means that there were more students who wanted to attend the charter schools than there were seats available. And pretty consistently over the years, there has been a demand number above 0. So there are more families in Mississippi who would like to attend the charter schools than there are seats available. And this past year, the schools were able to fill 1,800 seats, and that's not re-enrollment. So that's just able to fill those seats that were available. And then 674 additional students had wanted to attend and were unable to. You know, the conversation about demand has to be paired with a conversation about enrollment. And statewide enrollment is declining in Mississippi. I mean, this is a nationwide phenomenon. And so we also look at some data on the districts that have charter schools right now, as well as districts that are eligible to have charter schools based on being a D or an F district, and looking at those enrollment trends over time. And then we also look at the state. At the state, there's an enrollment decline of about 2.3% over the last 3 years. And we find that districts that are eligible to have charter schools but don't have them yet have declined by almost 10%. That's the 9.51%. You also have some of the districts that have charter schools right now, like Clarksville Municipal, Natchez Adams, are seeing 10% or more decline in enrollment over time. This just has to be paired with that question of demand, that families would like to attend charter schools, but there's also dropping enrollment across the district. So, you know, do schools expand to fit that? Is a new school appropriate? These are just a lot of considerations that have to be to be weighed. So the key takeaways of this report, again, just want to reiterate that this report is answering a different question than what a state report card is answering. We are looking at how much students learn relative to similar peers, and it, you know, different than a school report card that's one point in time and just kind of shows where scores are. We're looking at that growth compared to similar peers once we've matched them. And our results show some meaningful gains in several charter schools, particularly in the elementary level, and then there's a lot of variation at the middle school level. We also show that demand persists within a broader context of declining enrollment, and that just underscores the importance of strategic, sustainable growth in the sector. We have a couple of recommendations. You know, just would really encourage you to use these findings as a complementary lens in your authorizing decisions and really use them alongside accountability grades and the performance framework results. In terms of demand and enrollment, you know, just really pay attention to entry grade level demand and enrollment trends. We have found in our demand analysis that surprisingly, there's not as much family demand in entering grade levels. So like kindergarten for the elementary or 4th or 5th grade for the middle schools, that it tends to be the grades that are off those entry grade levels. So families, you know, maybe after they've selected a school, they decide like, oh, you know, maybe we should be considering another school. What does that mean for thinking about new schools or expansion? And then just hopefully this data will help you to continually monitor variation across schools. I mean, all these data points, they can tell different stories, and across years, they're telling different stories. There's a lot to piece out. Could open it to questions and leave it with some of this beautiful artwork.
Thank you, Anna. Questions from board members?
I don't have any questions, but I took a lot of great notes. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't see anybody with any other questions there, so. All right. Anna, thank you for a job well done again. We really appreciate the opportunity that we have to work with you guys. It's again just a seamless, just symbiotic relationship, and we really appreciate the work. And a thank you to the Department of Education because they play a critical role in supporting us with the data that we need to conduct this analysis each year. So, and to the schools who self-report some data as well. So thanks to everybody who played a part in that. And we'll look forward to working with you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you and stay warm. Okay, moving on through my report then. The next item is the legislative update from Capital Resources. So Pete Smith is with us this afternoon as well, and he's going to provide an update on all things legislative.
Thank you, Dr. Kay, and thank you, board, for allowing me to be a part of this meeting and bring you a brief update on where we are with the legislative process. At this time, as you know, the legislature convened on January 6th, which just 3 short weeks ago. And on the first day of the convening, the Senate Education Committee met and passed what they deemed to be their school choice bill, which is a portability bill, which would allow students to transfer from district to district. They came right out of the gate with it, with that bill, and with a couple of others that dealt with PERS. But anyway, and so they kind of drew a line in the sand on where they see their, where they would like to see school choice go. Of course, throughout the summer and over the fall, you've heard the House talk about this big, in their terms, their big beautiful bill, which ended up being House Bill 2, which is roughly around 500 pages of all things school choice, anything from Magnolia scholarships, which would allow students to take the school-based student costs and go to a private school, expansion of the ESA scholarships, which is the scholarships for special needs students. They also have some portability language in their bill and House Bill 2. So you hear all this talk about school choice, but what you don't hear a lot of talk of, and there is a lot of language in House Bill 2 that centers around our charter schools and charter authorizer boards. And so it's an attempt, I think, to try to rewrite what they've deemed to be the 10 to 12-year-old charter law. And some things Dr. Kay and I have looked at that we do have some concerns, and we will continue to talk to leadership on both the House and Senate regarding those concerns. But there are also some good pieces too in this bill. One particular piece that we love, as well as the advocates we've been working with, as well as the expansion of charter schools to be allowed in D or F, or districts that have a D or F school. That's a major shift from just having a D or F district. And by last count, you're looking at 30 to 40 school districts that could possibly open up expansion to in the state, should this bill pass the legislature. So we're very excited about that. There's also a piece, some language in here that, I don't know if it's a bit concerning, but it's definitely different than where we are now with the reauthorization of the Charter Authorizer Board. We continue to look at that to try to deem and get answers on, why adding these types of different leaders from the community on the board. I'm sure they have their answers, and we'll look to get those, and we can support some. I mean, it's people who are experts in education, experts in disabilities, and all of that. But we're just trying to get a better understanding of what's going on with the reconstitution. There are also some language in there that would allow for multiple authorizers. There's language in there that would allow for the IHL or Community College Board to become an authorizer to authorize special schools or quote unquote charter schools on their campus. So there's a huge section around charter schools, and it kind of gets lost in the grand scheme of school choice speak today. But just so you'll know, Dr. Kay and I are working with our lawmakers to determine what, if anything, that there are going to be compromise on, so we can try to get whatever language that they're trying to move forward as accurate and as so that we can implement it with fidelity as soon as it's passed. So the first major deadline is February the 3rd, where all bills and general constitution issues have to be introduced. And so that'll be February 3rd, and then we'll continue to have committee meetings where each chamber would take up their own bills and then pass them off the floor and then send them to the other chamber. And so as far as, education is concerned, the House and the Senate both, Education Committee both met last week and passed a variety of bills, mainly what we call department bills, general bills that the State Department of Education would like to see passed. One bill to note that Chairman DeBar, and I tell you, Chairman DeBar on the Senate side has probably been the most outspoken on quote unquote charter performance. So just seeing that last study that was just presented with the propensity study, and charter students are basically outperforming their peers. Dr. Kamachara does a great job of explaining that in subcommittee appropriations meetings, but now to have something tangible where you can take to them and show them the actual report, I think would resonate more with them. But to go back to what I was saying, the Senate Education Committee met last week, and Chairman DeVar took up all of his bills except for Senate Bill 2489. And this bill basically would close a charter school if a charter remains a D or an F for longer than 2 consecutive years. He didn't take that up. And I'd like to think part of the reason is of the new data that Dr. Kamachara was explaining during our appropriations subcommittee meeting. And so, but we want to keep an eye on that one just in case. Both of these bills, the Senate's portability bill as well as House Bill 2 has a long way to go. Even though this is a short session, it's a 90-day session. Our experts and lobbyists don't anticipate these chambers looking at these bills until close to mid to end of February. So if there's going to be any compromise, hopefully we'll be a part of the process, and they're talking now. So when they do take them up, they'll know exactly what it is they'd like to see move forward. That's it on our front. Dr. K and I will be continuously meeting with, again, both the Speaker, Education Policy Advisor, as well as Lieutenant Governor's Policy Advisor, and both the House and Senate chairs. They've been gracious enough to invite us in to talk to us and let us talk about different things that are a concern to us, and then hopefully let us provide solutions to help resolve those concerns so we can move forward. So it's been a great working relationship thus far. Hopefully these two pieces of legislation are not hopefully they won't be in a position where they hold up other pieces of legislation that are coming down the pike, as we saw last year. So we continue to be optimistic about how things are going, and we continue to look forward to working together.
Thank you, Pete.
Any questions?
Questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question. Hey, Pete.
Hey.
From my understanding, I can't remember the bill number, but from my understanding, it barely passed. So I'm just curious of what are the top 2 or 3 concerns that you guys are receiving from the general public and other people that are making the decisions?
Well, it's for House Bill 2, which is the pretty much the big piece of legislation that has all of school choice options in it. Yeah, the biggest concerns that we've been hearing is basically the Magnolia Scholarship or the voucher part, where should this bill pass, that it would provide parents and students the base student cost, which is right now I think is $6,800, to be able to take that scholarship and then attend a private school. That's been one of the main concerns. And then you do for the non-charter, for the opponents of charter schools, the expansion into school districts that have a D or an F school. We've been hearing some concerns from them. So, but for us, what we would like to see is whatever they'd like to see done. We would just like to be involved in the process of making sure that, first of all, it makes sense, and second of all, that we can actually get it done. Because we don't want pieces of legislation to pass and it's a concept, and then they leave it to the board or the executive director or whoever to try to figure out how to make it work. So we like to try to get all those issues resolved on the front end prior to pieces of legislation passing. But those two, and also too, Chairman DeBar brought this up in Dr. K's subcommittee appropriations hearing. Should House Bill 2 pass exactly like it is, the charter section alone would add multiple millions of dollars to the state's budget, and I think they wanted that to be on record because if you have multiple authorizers, there's got to be funding for that. If you have you know, the state, or not the state board, but the charter authorizer board will have more responsibilities and duties, as well as the executive director. There might be, if this bill passed, that the authorizer board would have to hire a couple of more people to help with the implementation. So, that's a concern, I think, for the Senate side, is that should this bill pass as it is, then it would allow, or it would improve, increase the budget dramatically, and not just the charter sector. There's about 12,500 kids who would possibly be entitled to the Magnolia Scholarship that are already attending public schools, and so where is that money going to come from? So there are questions regarding funding around school choice, but again, there's some good things in this bill too that we'd like to see passed.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions? Okay,
All
seeing
right. I was
Pete.
just yeah, thank you. We were supposed to reconvene today, but of course the weather canceled that today. They're supposed to come in tomorrow at 2 o'clock, but highly unlikely we'll see most of our North Mississippi legislators for a little time.
Right. Well, thank you for the update today, and we will be in touch, I know.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Mm.
Okay, moving on, I think this is the last update, and I am going to do this update actually from my phone because Dr. McDonald was supposed to provide you guys with an update on Archway and Mississippi Global. So he had to jump off and attend another meeting with the Department of Education. So I'm going to do my best to give you an update from the text that he sent me just a bit ago. So with respect to Mississippi Global, their recommended enrollment target is 55 by March the 31st. And as of today, they do not have any students enrolled. Now, this is Mississippi Global. Keep in mind, Mississippi Global was going to open last year, had to delay because of some facility issues, and since that time has had to actually move from one location in the Delta to another, and has not secured a final facility yet. So they have run into some external issues to no fault of their own, that they are actually just dealing with to the best of their ability. Dr. McDonald and Mississippi Global and Archway will actually start meeting either weekly or bi-weekly or bi-monthly to keep up with the enrollment so that we can keep a close eye on how that is going. Archway's contracted enrollment target is also due March the 31st, and they're supposed to have 83. By that point in time, they do not have any enrolled as of today. And one of their questions that remains outstanding is around the internet access, and you all know that from previous conversations. Supports from us will be sharing enrollment information for the schools and processes on our website. We will require weekly updates to the staff and provide vice versa information between the two. And then with our data shared agreement with MDE, we're going to be able to share contact information to those schools for their recruitment efforts. So those are just a few of the things that Dr. McDonald shared very briefly before he had to hop off. We can provide additional detail if you would like that. So just let us know. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer them. Okay. Well, seeing none, then we will pivot to our next item on the agenda, and I will turn it back over to the chair. And Candace, I hope we have Candace still. Candace is in North Mississippi, and she may have had some trouble with her electricity. So let me see.
I still have her on the call, but I think that she's on mute.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Hello? Okay. Okay. I don't know how it got muted. I did not do that. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Next up is the financial report. Ms. Denise Rosette, Cornerstone Consulting Group.
I'm going to give you all a really short report today. And I apologize, my camera is not working, but I'm assuming you can hear me.
We can.
Great. This report covers the time between December 3rd and last Friday. And we have updated the budget column. We try to do this before every meeting if there's been any change. And so what we have done originally is just had a bucket of professional services set aside for as contracts were reported and approved by the board. And so since the last meeting, we do have 2 contracts that have been added to this. The first one was for a scorecard contract with the Epicenter. And that was actually approved by the board in August, but it just didn't get updated onto the chart. We mentioned it in the last meeting, but on today's budget, you will see that it is now there at $28,000. We may not use that entire amount in the current fiscal year, but we've reduced the bucket by that $28,000 and made a line item so that we could start showing you the expenses against those scorecard developments. The other one that we changed was we added $5,000 to the CPA contract that was approved by the board and to reflect that where the expenses are for that. At the end of last week, we completed just over 54% of the year, and we've expended just right over $50,000. I mean, 50%, I'm sorry, of the budget, 50.56% of the budget. But I want to remind everybody a couple of things about looking at it on a percentage basis. First, the commodity budget looks skewed because it looks like we've spent 87% of the commodity budget. But when we created the budget, we did not factor into the fact that we had two line items for commodities, one for direct school support and one for agency support. So if we add both of those together, we're really only at about 58% of the expenditures in the commodity line item, which is nothing to be worried about at this point. The other thing that I want to point out is that looking at the things on a percentage basis can be misleading because we don't spend everything in equal amount every month. A good example of that, we just heard the report from the Gibson on the survey, and that is a one-time expense and not an equal amount in 12 months. And so I just want to make sure that you know it can be misleading. And then I just kind of want to piggyback on to what Pete and Lisa have already talked about on the Appropriations Committee. The Appropriations Committee, Lisa did an excellent job of presenting information to them about the schools. And as Pete noted, a lot of the information about how the schools are performing was presented. Even, I think we spent 2/3 of the Appropriation Committee more on what the schools were doing than we did on the budget. And we did recommend that we would accept whatever the legislature did on the budget recommendation that they put together. However, we did point out that because there were so many changes in the legislation, that we would like to reserve the opportunity to speak to them again if some of those other bills passed, because it would have a very huge effect on our budget. And then the last thing I want to point out is, I mentioned on the commodities that we did not actually start tracking expenses by how much was spent for the schools versus how much is spent on operating cost. But we started doing that for the first time, like in all the contractual in FY26. And that was very helpful in the preparations hearing, because we were able to actually point out how much of the budget that we received from the legislature, or the authority to spend, was spent exactly on the schools. And we were able to say it was over 20% of our preparation was directly given back to the schools. And I don't have anything else to report unless y'all have any questions for me.
Okay, any questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to new business. The first action is the contract extension for capital resources. Can everybody look that up?
Can we go back real quick, Candace, and do the committee reports, I believe? Is that right? Dr. K, you're muted.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I missed that, you're right. Okay, yes, okay, we'll do the committee report.
Thank you.
The applications first.
Okay, that's me. And Dr. K, how much do I go in when I know it's going to be, since this is my first time doing this report, it's something that's going to be for consideration later?
I think just a high level of the process of committee action and how committees operate is fine, and just a general idea of what was discussed. And then just to note that that will be an action item further down to consider.
Okay. Okay, so the applications committee met last Thursday, I think it was Thursday the 22nd, to consider a contract amendment request for LaFleur Legacy. They are seeking to expand. Their request was specific to a change in grade level not previously approved, and they are wanting to move from 6-8 to grades 5 through 8. And so we quickly went over the 22-23, 23-24, 24-25 performance framework, where they were grade wise, where they were financial health. We noted the notice of concern. That will be up for approval later, but it did pass out of the committee with a 2 in favor and 1 opposed to that expansion request. And then Dr. K did provide y'all with the policy for consideration for prior to us considering expansions and their eligibility. And so that's something that we as a board need to consider. They're eligible if they meet the definition of high quality. And then high quality is also defined. So you guys have received those policies, and, we have those policies to follow. They've been through the APA process, and they were a board determination of how we can move forward. So all of that will be up for discussion later in the meeting.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Erin.
Okay, next is the Performance and Accountability Committee.
I believe Ben is chair of that, and since Ben, I think, missed the meeting anyways, Candace, if you could just give us a run through real quick, that'd be great.
Okay, we went through several of the choices, and we discussed what we thought that our top 2 would be, and I think we went with basis and schoolwork. And that would be up for discussion at another time.
Yeah, Candace, if I might clarify just a couple of things.
Sure.
So with respect to that meeting, Mr. Morgan was out, and so Candace Hunt, as chair, stepped up to lead the meeting for us. The committee had several different proposals to look for and review and discuss, and then make a determination on what proposal to bring forth for the entire board to consider. This is a proposal for strategic planning. The board received 16 proposals, and then staff whittled those down internally we presented the committee with 4. And the committee then reviewed those according to the rubrics and to the information that was provided to them, and then discussed those in anticipation of the full board making a final decision on that proposal. There was action taken, and Marcy, if you want to add anything, Marcy was really helpful in, I don't know, I've lost Marcy on the big screen here.
So I'm here. I just will say and I can say this later again, the 4 proposals we reviewed were all excellent.
Outstanding.
Outstanding.
Yep, I agree.
Yep. It was a very, very difficult decision.
Absolutely. So thank you to the committee for their work on that and their secondary review of everything that we had already reviewed internally. And then thank you to Ms. Hunt for stepping up and leading the meeting that day. So. And then I think we can move on to the next action or the next item there.
Okay. So next is we have a few people who would like public comment. And they are allotted 5 minutes. I think the first is Clarksdale, if they're on. If we do have Amanda Johnson, if Clarksdale would like to speak.
Thank you, Chair Hunt. I would like to turn it over to our attorneys who made the request for public comment to address the board, if that's all right.
Okay.
Good afternoon. This is Stephen Fritz, along with my colleague Michael Bentley. We represent Clarksdale Collegiate and appreciate the opportunity to be here. Mr. Bentley had a conflicting appointment at 2, and so had to drop off. We wanted to flag a few matters that may be relevant to the board in regard to Clarksdale Collegiate's ongoing efforts to secure refinancing. Those were discussed at the last meeting, and I'm not going to rehash all of that. But in brief, Ms. Johnson made comments related to the 24-25 performance framework review at last meeting. That was noted for information, but not subject to any formal board action on the minutes. After that meeting, there was issued a continued notice of breach to Clarksdale Collegiate related to financial and academic concerns. And so I just want to talk briefly about those financial and academic concerns in that context. The performance framework rated Clarksdale Collegiate as meets expectations on all 3 indicators relevant to financial performance, yet assigned an overall fails to meet expectations on that criterion based on the going concern issue that was discussed, flagged by the auditor. And all we want to say on that point at this point is that will be remedied once Clarksdale Collegiate secures refinancing. Those efforts are ongoing. There is nothing that was found in the audit or otherwise in the performance review that would indicate any other financial concern with regard to Clarksdale Collegiate. The other financial indicators are positive, including cash on hand, debt to asset ratio, and enrollment. Regarding the academic concerns that have been identified, the performance review that was put before the board last time rated Clarksdale Collegiate as meets expectations on academic performance. It noted that in several categories, Clarksdale Collegiate exceeded expectations, and that it met expectations on academic growth and academic proficiency. That is the application of the board's performance framework that is required by statute and regulation. The continued notice of breach identified a concern that we certainly understand regarding regarding the academic accountability metric, which for I believe the last 4 years has been a D. And certainly the school is committed to and working every day to increase that. The continued notice of breach stated, however, that Clarksdale Collegiate must earn a C on the 25 to 26 accountability testing in order to, quote, return to good standing, end quote, on academics. With all respect, that is not consistent with the performance framework evaluation, and that we have been unable to identify any statutory or regulatory basis for the yoking of the accountability model solely as that concern. It would be inconsistent with the performance framework's holistic analysis to take that one indicator, which we all acknowledge it is what it is, but to take it outside of the picture of the broader picture of the school's academic performance. That larger picture includes that Clarksdale Collegiate, as was just confirmed by the very interesting presentation by Basis to this board, that Clarksdale Collegiate largely outperforms the local traditional public school districts on many academic indicators and is rated meets or exceed expectations on the performance framework that has been adopted by this board. So we want to put the board, just make everyone aware of that. The efforts to secure refinancing are ongoing. Of course, we will not know the performance on the accountability model until September or perhaps October of this year. So it puts us in a situation where we just want the board to be aware that we may have to come before the board at some point, perhaps at the next meeting, with further updates and a request of the board regarding particularly the academic portion of that. We have worked with Mr. Pitts, and we appreciate his efforts in this regard to secure a letter from Dr. Karmacharya, which we appreciate. That letter was intended to be shared with lenders and subject to ongoing discussions with Mr. Pitts. But I do want to reiterate, we appreciate council and staff's involvement in this, and we certainly wish to continue to discuss this. Just want the board to be all aware of that. And I will turn it over to Ms. Johnson for anything further.
Thank you, Stephen. No further comments other than just a request for the board to respond and to for us to further discuss it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, I think we have one more public comment from LaFleur County.
Thank you, Chair Hunt. That would be LaFleur Legacy Public Charter School in LaFleur County, for sure. So apologies in advance if my internet gets to be a little shaky. I have been getting a notification that it is unstable. Nonetheless, good afternoon, Chairman Hunt and all the members of the board and everyone in attendance. As many of you know, my name is Dr. Tamala Boyd Shaw, and I serve as the Executive Director and founder of LaFleur Legacy Academy. I sincerely appreciate this opportunity to speak to you all today regarding what you have heard just moments ago about our contract amendment request to add 5th grade to our school, which currently serves grades 6 through 8. Board members and all, I want to begin by acknowledging the concerns that were raised in the applications committee meeting, enrollment variance and unattained enrollment projections. We certainly take these concerns very seriously. At the same time, board members, I respectfully ask that today's decision be grounded not only in where we have been, but where we are today and considering what our scholars are currently experiencing. Recent student and family survey data show unequivocally that our school offers the academic and social assurances needed to thrive. Further research we've heard just today show not only a demand for charter school expansion, but also how our school is outperforming the local school district. According to our 24-25 performance framework, LaFleur Legacy Academy meets expectations academically overall, with scholars demonstrating growth and proficiency at or above the local school district in multiple subjects and subgroups. In particular, our scholars with disabilities exceeded district growth rates, and overall academic growth in both ELA and math outperformed the local district. And that matters. That matters, board members, because growth is how opportunity, not just academic gaps, close. While our state accountability letter grade has indeed fluctuated, the data show a school that is producing stronger outcomes than available alternatives, especially when compared to district and comparable schools that serve more grades than we do, grades 3 through 8 in most cases. LaFleur Legacy does this all while serving a high-need population and maintaining full compliance across organizational and governance measures. Despite the professionally judged rating of our financial measure, we, in all factual evidence according to the framework calculator, meet expectations there as well. So, board members, adding fifth grade is certainly not a distraction from improvement. It is a strategy for improvement. It allows us to intervene earlier, to stabilize enrollment through continuity, and better prepare students for the rigor of middle school. It also directly addresses the very concerns that were cited. And finally, board members, I want to speak briefly as both a school leader and a parent. I myself have a third grade son who is bright, he's curious, and he thrives in small, personalized learning environments because of his IEP. And that is the kind of environment that we provide every day at LaFleur Legacy. With your vote today, I can leave this meeting excited to enroll my own child in the school that I lead if we are able to add fifth graders for the 27-28 school year. So this request is about families just like mine, families seeking an option that is already outperforming what exists locally. So I respectfully urge this board to consider the full body of evidence, the trajectory of our work, and the scholars we serve, and to approve our amendment request so that we can continue expanding access to a school that is delivering results. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shaw. Okay, next will be new business. We'll move, 10 was moved to 12, so now we'll be looking at new business. So the action considered approval for the contract extension for capital resources. Dr. Kay, would you like to say anything about this?
Not in particular. Am I on mute? No, this is just a contract extension to get us through the end of the fiscal year. We are trying to make sure that all of our contracts run through the end of a fiscal year and then pick up new contracts after that to ensure that we have some consistency. And so that's what this would do. And then the board would be asked again to consider another contract following that to get us along that fiscal year trajectory in line.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Aaron Meyer.
Second, Jay Carney.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, the next action to be considered is a contract amendment request for Ambition Prep enrollment. Dr. Kay, would you like to give us kind of just a synopsis?
Sure. I thought I'd do this since we have several different schools asking for enrollment related amendments to their contract. So I'll begin with Ambition Prep. And I'd like to just give a little history of their enrollment and then the rationale for this request for them. So, Ambition Prep, as you know, was recently approved for an expansion to move from their current or their original to a K-12 operationally. So the request is based on an alignment in the projections that were in the expansion package that the board did approve that carries them through 27, 29. I would note that from 22 all the way through 26, Ambition Prep met, exceeded, or nearly met their enrollment targets, oftentimes having to ask for an additional number of students to for us to consider an exigencies, maybe a grade level situation where they needed to add 2 or 3 more kids, up to 18 kids, not to exceed 120%. And so this is a standard adjustment to the contract again to align to the expansion application that was approved by the board and carry them through the 27-29 school year.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I so move Candace Robbins.
Okay. All those in favor? Or is there a second? Is there a second? Okay. No second?
This is Jay Carney. I'll make a second.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay. The motion carries. Okay. So next, Dr. K.
The next item on the agenda then would be a request. Let me flip over here. A request from Reimagine Prep, also for a contract amendment. This request for an enrollment contract amendment is to enroll fewer students than previously. This is an alignment based on enrollment trends. The Reimagine Prep back in 2022 was serving somewhere around 568 children. Projected enrollments were all the way through 24 were around 600. And then as enrollment has declined over the years down to 514, 525, in 25, 464, and actual enrollment this year at 358, the school recognizes the need to align those trends to their contract to be better positioned to serve those children and recognize the relationship between enrollment and the fiscal health of the school. So this is a request by the school to do that.
Okay, so I have a question on how they kind of came up with some of those numbers. I see, looking at their, like right now, what their projection is they've dropped their 5th grade to 75. They've added about 10 student enrollment for the 6th grade class, which I mean makes sense when you're transitioning from elementary to middle school. But then they've got a jump from 6th to 7th of 15 more kids, which 7th grade is a weird cohort to switch. So I'm just trying to understand those numbers because I know it impacts their funding. Shouldn't those be closer to, the same amount as the 6th grade trend rather than the 100? Should it be closer to 85 or 90 rather than that jump?
I think, Aaron, to be honest with you, without me going back in and doing a really deep analysis into what those enrollment by grade look like over time, I think the school has done a really good job of understanding the enrollment challenges that they've had during the past few years and recognizing the need to adjust downward. So as far as the details within the grade span, I think looking at those for another couple of years maybe and coming back and adjusting as needed. You heard Anna refer to some of that earlier today and some of the challenges that schools have at that initial grade level. So in this case, it would be fifth grade and pulling from those areas where they serve those children in South Jackson. I think it would need a little more analysis than what I can give you right this minute. I can give you actual projected and actual from 22 all the way to 26, but that's an overall number. I'd commend the school on recognizing the need to do this, and I would be happy to go back and look at more detail and provide you with that, but I don't have it right this minute. It would take a little bit of time to dig into it.
Is this also something that, like, this time next year they could revisit these enrollment numbers for the last few, for the next few years if they continue to see a change?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I so move Candace Robbins.
Second, Aaron Meyer.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, so the next to consider is the contract amendment for Revive.
Thank you. The same type of scenario here with Revive, with the exception of when you'll remember this, board members, when we redid all of Republic's contracts back over the summer, there was a Scribner's error in the communication between our attorney and their attorney and the actual enrollment table that was presented. And during some of our work and looking at enrollment and projected enrollments and trying to get numbers projected for funding for the next years, we recognized that that table in this particular contract only had 4 years, and it should have reflected 5. So, so they have adjusted that accordingly, and they have also adjusted a little bit downward based on their enrollment trends as well. The school originally was, I think, slated to serve, and I don't have their original contract in front of me, but I believe it was originally slated to serve a K-8, and they were going to do a backfill, and then over some time adjusted to begin building in their enrollment from the kindergarten all the way through, and based again on enrollment trends and what they are seeing, and knowing that they also have a school not too far from where they're located here down on north side, another elementary school. I think this was their best attempt to do the same thing that they're doing for Reimagine Prep, and that is to adjust accordingly based on the most realistic projections that they have and their actual enrollments, so that they're not over projecting or under projecting, and then budgeting accordingly to make sure that they're fiscally healthy.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I so move Candace Robbins.
Second?
I'll second
Cheryl
Marcy
Gary.
Scoggins.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, the next item is for the contract amendment request for LaFleur Legacy expansion.
I'm happy to discuss this in detail if the committee would like me to do so, but I can also turn it over to the committee who had the opportunity to review the request and discuss the request and review as well the board policies related to an expansion request. So I'll yield to the chair and respond accordingly.
Dr. K, if you wouldn't mind kind of teeing it up with going over the policy, and then I can kind of chime in. And I'm sure Jay and Candace will as well, since we kind of, varied in our points in that committee meeting.
Yeah, and I have a quick question. Is this something that we take place before we make a motion, or is it during the discussion time? Or I'm just making sure. I mean, I'm happy to talk about it right now if you guys feel like that'll be the best route. But
Dylan, do you want to chime in? I think.
Yeah, I mean, if it would be better to go ahead and make a motion, and then you can make your determination, or you can just discuss. I mean, it's up to the chair to rule it realistically.
Okay.
Was there a motion? Is there a motion to consider? Is there a motion to consider?
I so move Candace Robbins.
Okay, second.
Second, Jay Carney.
Okay, and discussion.
Okay, at this time, Dr. K, if you will go over the policy, and then as people want to discuss, we can.
Sure, happy to do so. I think the first thing I would just want to clarify before I go too much further, and that is I think I heard Dr. Shaw say today that this is just to add fifth grade. And if that is the case, and this is a request to only add fifth grade beyond those and not expand down to a K-8, then this is a different question than if she is seeking expansion of her middle school to a K-8 school. So if I can get clarification on that before I go into my comments, that would be helpful.
Are you needing Dr. Shaw to answer that?
Yeah. Yes, if Dr. Shaw can answer that, that would be helpful because I want to get clarification. I'm reading what's in the section B, and it does say that by extending the model, beginning with grade 5, LaFleur would move toward a goal of a coherent K-8 continuum. So my assumption is that this is step 1 in the request for an expansion of the entire school from a middle school model to a K-8 model. And I just want to clarify that before I go into any other response or provide additional detail for the board.
Thank you, Dr. Kamacharia, for the opportunity to reply to that question. And at this time, our request is simply to add fifth grade. We do know that we have a couple, at least, of charter schools that are 5th through 8th, serve 5th through 8th graders, but we are precisely seeking to add fifth grade so that we can continue to have a pipeline and create earlier entry, stronger retention, and more stable enrollment over time. This request, again, is specifically for fifth grade. As far as anything else that is coming down the pike for the future, our board has not discussed that in detail, only adding fifth grade at this time.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I Yeah. So a couple of things with respect to that. So if at some point the intent is to move into a K-8 model, and I believe I'd have to go back to my emails, but I believe in some earlier correspondence with the school and school leaders that there was a desire to go from a middle school 6, 7, 8 to build back down into a K-8 model. If the request is simply for an adding an additional grade, then the board would need to consider the enrollment trends and the readiness of the school to add a fifth grade only. I'm going to get back to the minutes and the requests from Mr. Martin that were provided from the school here.
I do want to make note that Dr. Shaw did say when she spoke that it'll kind of them adding a fifth grade would help with the increase of the numbers. It'll kind of meet that mark for them by increasing that grade.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm just trying to get all my notes here together. So and looking at, so when the school submitted their request, and that is in your packet, in your backup materials, if you go to page 3, it does say if requesting an expansion amendment as defined by the policy, the charter holder must complete section B of the amendment form, which would include the rationale, the evidence, and a brief summary for the financial implications and the school's track record. So in the way that this is presented to the board, it appears to be beyond that of just the fifth grade.
Yes, and looking, Dr. K, and looking at the minutes that came from the board,
Yes.
their discussion that they voted on said 26, 27 K1, 27, 28 school year, 2, 3, and 28, 29, 4, 5. And then their amendment does not align with that because their amendment specifies 27, 28, 28, 29, and 29, 30 as having a fifth grade. So
Correct.
those are not aligned.
Correct. So I am going to, with direction from the board, then make a determination by the board on what we need to discuss. I'm happy to discuss the one situation if it's just going to stop here and it's one grade level we're adding and we're not changing a model, or if based on what was provided, we are indeed in step 1 of the amendment request process for a full expansion. So with the board direction, and that is either board member direction or support from the council.
Our how we addressed it in our applications committee and what is reflected in our minutes was the contract amendment solely to expanding to serving fifth grade. And Candace and Jay can weigh in, but that is what our conversation focused on, as well as what the minutes reflect.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Well, I think she was talking to were you talking to Candace Hunt or Candace Robbins, Aaron? Because Candace Hunt was the one that just spoke.
Well, you both were present. I mean, our discussion, she was simply there observing, but I think she's just confirming what she witnessed as an observer.
Yeah, and then also, so yes, when we voted, the assumption was that it was for the fifth grade only, and then Dr. Shaw also just recently mentioned that that's what she meant. And Dr. K, when you read the amendment, when you read the information, the summary, to me, it sounded like she was just giving you a projection of like, this is what we're planning to do in the future, and not necessarily requesting like, hey, this is where we're headed and this is why.
Okay. No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, just to answer my question. I mean, answer the initial question of like, yeah, it was for just the fifth grade approval. So just that.
Okay. So I just need to clarify then, because we've gotten some mixed information and some maybe a little bit of confusion here. So when a school completes a contract amendment request, it is very clear on that contract amendment request, and Section A is where you would indicate what you're asking. So Section A was completed, and that's found on page 3. Changes in grade levels not previously approved, meaning that it wasn't previously approved in that original contract. And that would include adding or removing of a grade level. Section B is not necessary unless the school intends to seek a full expansion into a new model. Section B was submitted by the school. And it very clearly says if requesting an expansion amendment as defined by our expansion policy, the charter holder must complete Section B of the amendment form, including the following, which the school did, which in my understanding of what the school was requesting, it was indeed the first step in the process of a full expansion. So I am going to yield to our attorney to help me clarify that before I can go on and give you any other additional details.
Okay, well, in our board agenda, their request is linked. And if you review that and review the minutes that they adopted, it would appear that in the other business under A, they made a motion to explore the option of serving additional grades at LaFleur Legacy. It was seconded, and the members discussed exploring the following expansion schedule. So 26, 27 K through 1, 27, 28, 2 to 3, and 28, 29, 4 to 5. Team voted unanimously to approve. The board established its meeting schedule for the year, which is not pertinent to this. But it would appear to me that this was submitted as an attachment to the expansion application in Section B of the amendment form. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it says that, Legacy has demonstrated strong, I mean, this is their school, so they're requesting an approval for grade 5 beginning in the 27-28 school year as the first phase of a planned K-5 expansion. So,
Correct.
I mean, it may have been just requested in the meeting as grade 5 for next year, which is accurate, but
Correct.
there is also an additional discussion term here as the first phase of a planned, meaning that they've already intended to. It's not something they're just projecting, planning to go K to 5. And they use the words expansion, not just an enrollment variance or something along those lines. So
Correct.
from our standpoint here, the submission simply seems to be the expansion, not just the adding one additional school year at this time. Of course, all they're seeking here in the projected enrollment would be 5th grade. They didn't include a 4th or 3rd because they're only requesting 5th right now.
That's
But
correct.
as we discussed with Revive, Reimagine, and all the Republic schools, there's nothing prohibiting you from coming back in the next meeting or, in the next year and asking to add this table as time goes on.
The difference is, and I would just encourage all board members and stakeholders to please access and review the expansion policy. The expansion policy that was board approved and is available on the Secretary of State's website and our website clearly states that for a school that wishes to expand beyond its current configuration, grade model, original grade model, or grade served, that is not something that is going to happen on a regular basis, then it is considered and defined as an expansion. For example, going from a middle school to a K-8, or going from a middle school to a high school, or going from an elementary school to a K-12. There are very, very well clearly defined details in that model that explain what expansion means, versus what adding a grade level or removing a grade level means. And it appears to me in this original step 1, and again, I would go back to the expansion policy. Step 1 is submitting a contract amendment request to the board for consideration to move forward. If the school is not eligible to submit a complete application for expansion, that is based on the definitions again in the policy as it's defined and approved. So I am happy to pull that up and walk through those with you, if that is indeed the board's decision and preference.
Well, I have a question, Dylan. This is for you. So basically, Dr. Shaw has said that I guess she specifically was mentioning or wanted this for an expansion to the 5th grade. So would this just be something that we could take care of if we did another motion to amend that request to make it specific to 5th grade?
Well, the issue is they've submitted an application that reads a different way.
The contract amendment request.
Yeah, so their request is not just to add 5th grade. I mean, it's foreshadowing, and it specifically states that they're looking at K through 5. So it's more than just, oh, well, I'm here now, and this is, that they're indicating that they're moving to K5. Everything in here is K to 5. There's no real just 5th grade information in what I've looked at, just reviewing it fairly quickly while we're speaking. And I mean, the last here on page 5, it says by extending its model beginning with grade 5, legacy will move toward its goal of coherent K to 8 continuum. So, I mean, the request is for K to 5, which they already have 6 to 8. Sorry, Erin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were finished. So the reality is they need to either go back to their board and fix their specific request and then submit another contract amendment. Because those items right now are not aligned.
That's
and
correct.
If that's the case, I would make a motion to table this entirely because I don't think it's something that adheres to our policy that we can vote on.
Will we miss a window if we tabled it? Like, how long would we have to?
Well, the bigger problem is we're not following our policy. I mean, regardless of their window, we're not following our policy, and they did not follow the policy either.
That's correct.
One other thing I might just share too, if schools that are in expansion and are seeking additional funding sources, such as the charter school program grant, if you're adding a grade level, you're not eligible. If you are, expansion is not only defined by our policy, it's also defined by the federal government. And so I don't have any of that in front of me, but I do know that when we had the CSP grant at one point in time, that is a part of the conversation. So you cannot just add one grade now, add another grade later, and then not have a significant expansion plan and be eligible for those funds. So I think there's a lot to be considered here, and I do know that and Miss Dr. Shaw can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe when she reached out to me originally, it was about expansion that is defined as adding grades that would impact or fundamentally change the current school's model. And that is in our policy. The eligibility of that school is determined then by whether or not the school is in good standing and if the school meets or exceeds the academic standards for student achievement and growth, and whether or not this is something that's likely to happen on a regular basis or not. And so I think there are some significant questions that need to be answered, primarily Ms. Meyer, to your point, if the school is going to seek an expansion down from its model, current middle school model, to a K-8 model and serve elementary children over time, then that is an expansion that required the submission of Section B of the contract amendment, which they did submit, and so we have that information already that can be considered. So that information could certainly be considered at this point in time.
Although that was not what was discussed by the application committee. So that's a problem. It hasn't appropriately moved through the right steps. So again, it's inappropriate for our board to consider something that the application committee has not first considered.
Okay.
Well, I
For
think
this time, we
to go.
we make a motion to table.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
So
I
we
move
need to
that I again renew my motion to table this entirely.
Well, we need to vote before
Okay,
we
Aaron
do
moved. Okay, Aaron moved. So can I get a second?
I so move. I mean, sorry,
second.
Candace Robbins.
Okay. All right, so there's a second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries to table. Okay, so we'll move on to the last action, consider approval for the proposal for strategic planning.
Would the committee like to address that, or would you like me to address that?
I'm glad to say a few words if that's okay.
Thank you, Marcy.
So it's my understanding that they put out a request for proposals. The authorizer received 16. Is that correct? Proposals for the strategic planning. The 16 were rated by the staff and Dr. K, and the committee considered the top 4. Gibson, Basis,
Schoolworks.
Schoolworks and Margolis. They were all very impressive. We did rule Margolis out, was the first one we ruled out, but then there was lots of discussion. I do mean lots on the remaining 3 because they all had really, really great proposals, and we all loved so much of what was discussed. I wish we could have kind of pulled the 3 together to come up with one, but after a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth, the committee did decide to suggest Basis for the strategic planning proposal. I think if I remember correctly, their proposal involves 2 days of board. Is that correct?
Are you talking about?
Was it a day and a half or 2, something like that?
It may have been a day and a half.
I think it was a day and a half.
A day and a half of stuff of time for the board members. They all were just really great proposals, and it was a difficult decision. But at the end of the day, we decided on Basis policy research to do our strategic planning.
Okay, people have had time to look that over. Is there a motion to discuss? Would anyone like to entertain a motion?
I so moved. Carol Gary.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Aaron Meyer.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So at this time, it's like a consideration for an executive session. There are a few items up for discussion. SR1 SPCSA.
I move that the board consider making a closed determination of the need to go into executive session. Aaron Meyer.
Is there a second?
I'll second Marcy Scoggins.
Okay, all those in favor?
Wait, can we do a discussion here quickly?
Okay,
We
discussion.
will, Candace.
Yes,
We're
discussion.
gonna move first, and we'll have to close the room and do the discussion.
Well, no, I guess my discussion is around going into, because it's been it's 2 hours. It's kind of like, if I'm just wondering where everybody is, like, capacity wise, of like going from a 2-hour meeting to talk about some other things that are very important. So I don't know. It's just, I'm wondering if this is something we should put on another date. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But if everybody else is available the next hour or two, I'm fine with that as well.
The next meeting isn't until March, regularly scheduled, so we would have to be doing a called special if that were the case.
And I'm okay with that. But if everybody else wants to move forward, I'm willing to do that. And for the group effort. So
Okay. Would you like to make a motion to have a special meeting?
Well, I have a motion right now on the floor.
Yeah, there is a motion currently on the floor, and what we need to do is basically, Jordan, I'm going to need you to help me to kick everyone out and get us into a private room so we can make the next step, which is whether we actually go into executive session or not.
Okay, let me ask you this,
Okay.
Dylan. So I heard Aaron's motion and I heard Marcy's second.
That's
Does there
right.
does there need to be a vote before I move everybody, or no?
Yes. Candace, if you'll call it real quick, please.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Okay.
opposed? Wait, I couldn't hear. Was there an opposition?
I didn't hear one. So if we can clear the room now,
Okay.
Jordan, thank you.
Okay, yes, give me just a second. I'll do it. Okay, we have folks back
Okay,
from
just let
the
me
waiting
know.
room.
Okay, we can continue.
Yes.
Okay, all right. The next regular meeting will be on March 16th.
Hi, Candace.
Okay. Oh wait.
Sorry.
Okay. No
No
action.
action was taken during executive session today, just for the clarification.
Okay. No action was taken. The next regular meeting will be on March 16th, 2026 at 1:00 p.m. at 239 North Lamar Street, Suite 207, Jackson, Mississippi 39201. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Please identify yourself for the record.
I so move, Candace Robbins.
I second
For a
Marcy
second?
Scoggins.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Madam
That
Chair,
would be the conclusion. Yes?
if I might just interject real quickly, I know we had an item that was tabled on the agenda. I did send you all board members an email that clarifies that question. So you'll have an answer on whether or not that particular item was indeed a request for an expansion or a request to add a grade. So you can check your emails at your convenience.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
All right. Thank you
All
all.
right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank y'all. Bye.
Bye.